Okay, putting the distributor in sometimes can be a little tricky getting it set in the proper spot. So from the last time when I had my 327 pulled apart, I had marked my spark plug wires, and this one leads up to the top here to where I marked it as number 1. This is my number 1 cylinder wire, and that's the one I need to look at. So when I put my distributor cap on, line up the tabs here, and I put this on, and number 1 is right here on my cap, so it has to line up right here on my distributor. I've already marked it with that blue mark, and that is where my number 1 has to be. Now, how do you know that number 1 cylinder is going to be in the right spot to be firing? So this is how you tell is by the valves here. And this timing mark here is supposed to line up right here at the top with the larger notch, and it could, when it lines up here, it could be either the number 1 firing position or the number 6 firing position. What you need is the number 1 firing position, and there's a couple of different ways to check. And this here, when I turn this clockwise, watch the valves, and the valves on number 1. Now as I turn it and it's lining up with the top, you'll see that the valves are moving as it lines up. Once the number 1 intake valve moves down, keep turning the crankshaft clockwise until the timing marks line up here. You are now at the number 1 firing position. Another way that you can tell without having the covers off is if you put your finger into the spark plug hole using a socket on the bottom pulley there. I turn the engine over and you keep your finger inside the hole there. And if you feel it sucking as it's lining up, then it's in the wrong spot. You have to turn it until you can feel it blowing out of the cylinder. And I just felt it blowing out of the cylinder, so that is the right spot. Okay, so now we're going to be ready to put the distributor in. It's sitting at the number 1 cylinder right now. The timing mark down here is at top dead center, and so this is in the firing position right now for number 1. So our rotor should be facing number 1 when I put it in here. Now, generally, you like to put it in so that number 1, where it's firing, it should be facing basically the number 1 cylinder. So this should be pretty much on a straight angle across to here when you set it in. And because you can turn this in any direction, but it should basically be facing that cylinder. Now, there's a little tab up inside of here, and if I hold this so that it's number 1 is there and it's basically facing that cylinder, then I need to know which way this is turned, and it's on basically the same angle facing that cylinder. And there's a little notch right inside of here. I don't know if you can see it there. This has a little notch inside of there, and basically where it has to hook into is this rod here. This bottom part of this rod goes into the oil pump, and this shaft is what runs your oil pump off of the distributor here, and it has to hook down inside of here, which is basically this way. And this shaft is already inside of this engine. Now I just need to get this turned so that I can hook it into place there down in the bottom. So when I drop my distributor in, that shaft is going to be lined up as well. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to face this towards the number 1 cylinder with a nice long screwdriver, and now this should drop right in. If you don't turn that in the right direction down in the bottom there, You can't get the distributor to drop in all the way. So now I've got this in here, and when you drop it in, you're always going to want to turn it back a little bit away from the mark. The mark is here, and I'm turning it this way because when you drop it in, it's going to turn as it lines up. And there, it all plopped into place. But what I ended up with here is it's not in the right spot, so I'm going to have to pull it back out again. Give this a little bit of a turn the other way. It didn't line up in place where I wanted it. So I'm going to turn this back a little farther this time. And that would be right about right there.